Welcome to Queerness, the podcast that puts the yeehaw in y'all means all. I'm your host, Beck.
And I am your host, Dash. Welcome to today's episode. It is pouring, thunderstorming here.
Oh, that's my favorite.
It's hard to want to be motivated. You grew up in trailers. Do you ever have one with a tin roof?
Oh, yeah.
That sound of when the rain, it doesn't even really have to be that hard of rain. It just...
Yeah.
It's like being in the womb.
I literally sleep the TV in my bedroom. I keep it on YouTube and I keep it on 24-hour thunderstorms. Because you can get them with tin roofs and everything else. They have all kinds of different soundtracks on there.
I've heard the sleep podcasts and sleep playlists and stuff. I haven't actually checked into it.
Well, with YouTube, you have to be careful. You have to get one that doesn't have the commercials because it'll be a beautiful thunderstorm and then screaming in your ear some stupid commercial. So there's plenty of them out there that are no commercials whatsoever, and they go for 24 hours. So you just turn it on and...
Do you ever fall asleep with the TV on when you were a kid and you wake up to what was that Celine Dion song? The CD about love songs for the ages.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like just jump away.
The infomercial. I had a TV in my room as far back as I can remember.
There was a little black and white TV. So me and my siblings all shared a bedroom because this trailer we lived in only had 2 bedrooms. And my dad, he did like some creative things to try to make it feel like, we all had our own little space. So he made 3 beds out of just 2x4s and 2x6s that would fit in the room so that we could all have our own bed. And that way we got to be like, no, this is my area. We could set a boundary that way. And we could even kind of rearrange them sometimes. But anyway, they gave us this, they got a new TV. And so they gave us the old one to have in there. And it was this one of those little black and white ones that had like the really bulbous screen on it. It was like came out like a bubble. We could watch... What was Nick at Night? Like after a while, there was Nickelodeon. Was that network?
Nickelodeon itself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a network. Yeah, because we never had cable. And so I'm remembering like all of a sudden more channels started to pop up.
Because there were things like Double Dare and those and
you can't do that on
television. Yeah. I loved that show.
Yeah. Like network television expansion was a game changer for people who couldn't afford cable. Like MTV, Fox, and Nickelodeon. Suddenly we could see more interesting things than just what was on KET.
My mom had a taste for expensive things, so we always had good cable. We always had access to all the channels that were there. We had HBO and Cinemax in the 80s, things like that. Yeah. We never had like insurance, but we had HBO and Cinemax.
That is so fucking country.
You might be a redneck if.
Well, and every now and then my parents they would save up for nice things. They'd I remember when CD players came out one year. Like my dad really wanted one. He's a big musician, music fan, audiophile person, and so mom saved up for a long time and got him a CD player. And I just remember when he opened, I don't remember if it was a birthday present or a Christmas present. I just remember his face when he opened it, and I was like, that was the first time I realized that adults can have that feeling of opening an amazing present too. Because by that point, I was kind of at that transition stage between, I had become Santa Claus pretty early. I became somebody who helped put presents out or pretend like Santa had come and stuff. But then seeing him open a present that just actually made him have that experience, it kind of gave me hope for the future that there's still joy even for adults.
Yeah, that's awesome. My mom and dad put on some spectacular Christmases. I'll give them that. I was the baby, so I got what was whatever in line generally with what the other 2 wanted. I remember one Christmas, we all got 4-wheelers. My sister got a moped. My brother and I both got 4-wheelers.
Yeah.
And we walked into the family room and they were all sitting there lined up in a row with giant bows on them.
That's epic.
Yeah, and mom would take glitter glue and write "From Santa" on things, and she wouldn't put those out. She went crazy. Christmas was her favorite holiday.
Sometimes I wonder how having either limited resources or limited access to things informs a person's approach to special days like that. Because there were years where, especially if it had been a hard year for them and they couldn't afford nice things, they would go for abundance. One year, I remember, we woke up and it must have been hundreds of packages under the Christmas tree. And they were individually wrapped little just like dollar store toys, like really cheap toys and things. But like that visual is something I'll never forget. Just seeing
Right.
it was the illusion of abundance. I don't know. I mean, it was technically abundance, right? It was a shitload of toys.
Right.
Like reflecting now, I'm thinking of all the ways that they just played with what was available to still try to give us significant experiences like that. And then there was a 1 year too where they did something like that. Like we each got a really nice present, and it was all we got the whole fucking year.
Yeah. Yeah. Christmas, like my grandmother, my adopted grandmother, she won a countywide holiday decorating contest.
Mhm.
They started decorating like in October, and they would turn them on Thanksgiving Day, and then they'd run through New Year's. When I was going through all her things, I found the check that came from the radio station that sponsored the contest. The last time that they did it, her and my grandfather, before my grandfather passed, she had 26 Christmas trees in the front yard. There was a flying Santa they put up between electric poles. There was a flying Santa with 9 reindeer in a sleigh that went all the way over. They built a life-size like a little stable thing, like a stable scene. It was my parents owned the porn shop at the time, and they donated one of the mannequins to the manger scene. So they put spotlights on top of it and put it in Mom's old wedding dress. So there was this angel in flowing white stuff on top of this manger that had the full like nativity scene inside of it. She went nuts.
I was really hoping you were going to say this was like a blow up doll or something.
Oh, they had those too.
in the nativity.
I don't remember that. I remember those were hard plastic.
Yeah.
My mom didn't fuck around with the nativity.
Did y'all do that thing where you get in the car and you drive around and look at people's?
Oh yeah, I still do that.
Yeah, I do too. Our trailer park, people didn't really decorate much there, but people who had houses like that they owned and yards with trees and things. And in Jellicoe too, there was a lot of hills. People would get really creative with like creating sled scenes going down the hills, and even there was one house called the High Slope. It was their last name, and so we just called it the High Slope House. They went out for every holiday that had any form of decoration associated with it. They would have things suspended from that hill going out from their house, like stuff flying,
like a Santa or something like that.
But also Halloween decorations.
We weren't so big into that. I think that's more of a newer tradition. I don't think people were doing that as much. Where at least my family didn't do that. You had to go to the nice parts of town to even see houses that were lit. You know what I mean? Most people that didn't have money didn't even invest in the lights for the house. They couldn't.
Yeah, those were kind of an expense.
Yeah. I remember my grandparents' house when they turned the lights on, their little electric meter, there was like a little wheel in there that showed how fast the electricity was being used, and it would just fly. It was like, woo, woo, woo.
Yeah, now I'm like feeling really, because I spent, Christmas here. It was cool because it was super snowy. There wasn't a ton of snow that we got down in East Tennessee, but I'm just now realizing there wasn't a lot of decorating going on. And if it was like the lazy version, like inflatables.
Right.
Like a blow up Santa Claus in the yard.
Yeah. I think that's also a later invention. I think those are more of a modern kind of thing. And the light, the projectors that you put on the house that puts like the big snowflakes up on it and things like that. Have you seen those?
I don't think I have seen those.
They can put on light shows. You can make it look like it's snowing in front of your, like, it's not a good illusion in any way. It's just a projector going on the front of your house. You can do stars and stripes and that kind of thing. There's all kinds of different configurations that you can do.
Something like that I have done with a projector is project movies onto the side of a house, like onto the side of the house, and like sit in the yard and watch movies.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That was one of my dad's plans for the summer after he passed away before he got to it. That was one of his plans, something he was going to do.
Yeah, it's like a kind of a neighborhood party because you just can't fit that many people inside of a small house. But then whatever texture the trailer is winds up being on the picture.
Yeah, my dad he was a movie collector. He was a movie buff, my adopted father. And when we left the trailer, we had to leave so much stuff behind. There was just nowhere to take it, and the guy that bought the house was willing to take whatever we wanted to leave. And one of the things we left, he had burned over 1,000 movies. He had built on bookshelves. He built an entire room onto the house with his bare hands. And one of the things he did was build in an area for a large screen TV, a big projector TV that we had, and 2 giant sets of shelves for movies. And he had them filled.
Hell yeah.
Like any movie you can think of, they pretty much had. But,
Mm.
they used to own a movie store, so I kind of understand.
A lot of entrepreneurs in your family. That's not something where I'm from. Like, not a lot of people had businesses.
So the pork chop was originally a movie store,
Mm.
like before the chains came in, and it was just a family movie store that had a room in the back where you could go through the curtain and get your pornos or whatever. And then they specialized when the other chains came in. People, they lost a business and they were doing really good business in the back room, so they specialized. And my uncle and his wife are the ones that actually opened it. And then my mom and my biological father were getting a divorce. And back then there were no ATMs, online banking, anything like that, and her lawyer told her to go get half of the money that they had in the bank account out. So she did, and she put it in a brown paper bag, and she didn't know what to do with it, so she gave it to her brother to hold. And her brother was a notorious gambler, and he promptly lost all $8,000. And so the only thing he had of value to give mom back was the porn shop. So my parents never wanted to own a porn shop. It was literally kind of handed to them by accident.
Interesting.
Mom always saw it as a community service kind of thing. She felt, which I kind of see your point.
Yeah.
If that was before the internet, and the only way to get porn was to come there,
Hmm.
because there was no 7-Eleven where you could go buy nudie magazines or whatever. There was nothing like that in my town,
Hmm.
and so you had to go to the porn shop to get anything. It was big business.
So when we moved up on the mountainside, there was I think I told the story already. There was a one of those gigantic satellite dishes up there.
My papa had one of those.
Yeah, and my
He got
dad,
every channel.
yes, literally every channel across the globe.
Yeah, yeah.
If you take the restraining bolt off, you can program it to go to get any signal. Because with those, especially back in the 90s, they weren't really encrypted or anything. You just point it at the satellite and you get the feed. That is also where we saw a lot of our first skin flicks, and just also just kind of other representations of what sexuality or titillation or things like that look like in like non-American contexts or in other parts of American contexts.
Right.
It was real interesting because the context that happened in, like my learning about that wound up being also among my brother and our cousins. And so we were watching this, but we were also sort of like, this isn't the usual context that folks would consume this in. So it actually was purely educational.
The first time I ever saw actual porn on the screen, because the first time I saw images, I remember that very vividly. I remember the first time I saw a dildo, I was about 4 years old. They were moving the shop from one part of town, one mini mall, to another part of town. And my job was to keep my eyes closed at all times, right? Because I was 4. And so I got bored and I didn't. And I was wandering around and all the adults were busy. And I looked up and they had everything in like jewelry cases, like the dildos and things like that. And they had one sitting on top of it, and I was standing there. Remember, 4 years old. At 4, I was standing like under the jewelry case, and I was looking up at this thing, trying to figure out what it was. I had never seen one before. And my uncle Glenn came over, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to tell on you." And I started crying my eyes out. He was like, "Go ahead, stop." And he ended up giving me $1 to stop crying. And I often say that is my gay route when I got paid to stop crying over the penis. The first time I ever saw actual like pornographic images, the little room they had for the movies, they would go back and you would bring the cover to the counter, and then they would take the cover back to the wall of just movies in the cases, and then you would swap them out. So it would the cover that came with it would count as a placeholder there, so we'd know which videos were out. And so you could see the top of the case, right? And I was sitting in the office one day and I looked up and there was a mouse, not a real mouse. It was a cartoon mouse with a rocket for a penis. I was so confused by that. But the first time I saw like moving images of pornography, because if your parents work at the railroad, they bring home magazines about the railroad and things like that. So we had inventory magazines and things like that. So I saw Benoit balls when I was 7, 8 years old. I saw all kinds of things like that. But I would come home from school and I don't know if you remember working with videotapes. Sometimes, especially a one that you played a lot, the tape itself would go bad. It would get bad spots in it. So with pornos, those get rough handled and rewound a lot, in certain places. And so sometimes the tapes would go bad, but the store had a policy that if your tape was bad, they'd give you a free rental, and people would abuse that. So mom would have to check the tapes. I would come home from school and she'd be vacuuming, running pornos on the big screen TV in the living room.
Oh no. Quality control. And you didn't become an axe murderer.
No, that you know of.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm too lazy to be an axe murderer. That sounds heavy.
Yeah, it just sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah. Be messy.
Gosh, one of the houses we broke into, we found an abandoned house. There's a lot of them around. We didn't really think anything about just letting ourselves into them. We found out later, and we were told that was something we were not supposed to do. But one of them turned out it was, I think, folks just stayed there. Maybe it was a house people would come to do substances or party or something. And it had mountains of magazines, like floor to ceiling stacked high, actually kind of organized, but just a shitload of them. So that was the first time I actually saw like a pictures, something like that. And still, I was just sort of like, well, this is interesting. Like, this is a way people spend their time, I guess.
Your cultural studies mind developed early.
Yeah.
I find that shit so interesting, the way that people express sexuality and things like that. I also had a copy of the original Sylvester Stallone porno. It was called something At the Party or something. Once he became famous, they re-released it under the name The Italian Stallion.
Yeah.
I was convinced I was going to find that when I had to go through all their stuff, but I think my dad's girlfriend got rid of all the porn stuff. He also had a collection of magazines because people would bring weird things in to trade, and this guy brought in a whole collection of men's magazines that were published before the Comstock Act ended. And the Comstock Act, if you don't know, which I'm sure you do, but maybe the listeners don't, basically said that you couldn't send obscene things through the mail. That was one part of it. And they considered anything talking about birth control, sexuality, reproduction, all of that was considered obscene materials. So there was no way that they could send out an actual magazine with nude women. That would be against the law. So to get around that, they used mannequins. And there's whole magazines filled with mannequins and risque positions and wearing negligees and things like that.
And then I'm sure that became just somebody's thing. They're like, oh, I didn't know that I was into that. Well, let's give this Wheel of What Have You a spin. Okay, we landed on first queer outing. So I think that this can be an official queer, going to a bar or something like that, or to a club, or first time you got to do something queer.
The first gay bar I ever went to was the Stonewall in Huntington, West Virginia. I had come out to myself in the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college. And then I went to college and I started slowly coming out to some of my friends there, but I didn't come out to anybody at home. And then I came home for spring break of my sophomore year and I was like ready to do it. And I had a lifelong friend named Jonas and I sat him down and I was like, I got something to tell you. I'm like, I'm gay. Jonas was the gayest human that has ever lived in this world. Bless his little flaming heart. I will love him forever like a brother. He was one of those people that you knew at 5 years old he was going to be a flaming homo, right? And he was like, well, I've been going to this bar. And I was like, well, take me. So I was living in Cincinnati and I drove from Cincinnati to go to West Virginia to a gay bar. We went and it was my first experience and we kind of just were flies on the wall, but it was the first time I ever felt free. I remember that because there were people, there were girls kissing and there were drag queens and there were boys holding hands. And I had never seen such things. I had never seen such openness and, such freedom to be whoever you wanted to be. And I was hooked. Mm-hmm. And I started coming home every weekend from Cincinnati to go to the bar in Huntington. I had to lie to my parents and told them that I was going to the Wild Dog. Listeners, if any of you are aware of that area, you remember the Wild Dog. I lied. I went there once, but I told my parents I was going every weekend, and instead we were going to the Stonewall.
So none of the Cincinnati gay bars could do it for you. It had to be that.
Well, that was before Google. You have to remember that. That was before Google was the thing. We're talking 97, like 97, 98, way back. Jonas heard tell of a gay bar in Cincinnati. And so he drove up and we went down there one night and he and I were dressed as preppy as can be. I went to Miami of Ohio. He was, a little preppy dude. He wore a lot of Abercrombie and Fitch and that kind of thing. So we take our preppy little asses into this bar and turns out it's a leather bar.
Yeah.
And we were so far out of place. We just kind of stuck to the wall for 5 minutes and we were like, we got to go. And so that kind of scarred both of us, and we didn't try again in Cincinnati. There's one here in Toledo. Did you ever make it to the one in Toledo?
Probably not. I never have been a big gay bar person. There are times when like that you just know. I really would love to be not only around other gay people, but in a bar. I want to be a place where I can't really have a conversation without having to scream, and drag queens are on a stage collecting dollars. That's just like, when you want to experience that.
Right.
And while we were there, we didn't have, not as students, we didn't have a lot of disposable income, and we also just didn't have a ton of time. So I just don't remember ever catching that bug.
Well, gas was cheap. Gas was like $1 a gallon back then, and cover charge at the Stonewall was $5. So, I have $10 and you were there and back and in the door. And I would just drink water the whole time. I've never been much of a drinker.
Yeah.
Or you were a designated driver and you made Jonas pay for gas.
I went to, like, when I lived in Kentucky, we went to the gay bars in Lexington all the time. And I know that we've kind of already talked about this, like which bars we go to. And I would sneak out in high school and go down to Knoxville. But for me, like, gay outings actually came before the discovery of queer spaces, because there was quite a few queer people in my high school. I wasn't really in that group, because I had just already made the decision to try to like live my life and just keep my head down until I could get out of there. But occasionally I would find myself with those folks, especially as like I approached graduation and just cared less and less. There was a ton of lesbians, and they would cruise together, or on weekends they had places that they would go and just kind of mess around with each other. And so a lot of my first queer outings were super redneck. I think there's this assumption that queerness just doesn't happen that often in rural places, especially rural places like Appalachia. And I'm like, just because we didn't name a club after it doesn't mean we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Like it's just an entirely different culture around how it's discussed and negotiated.
There is so much queerness in the hollers.
Even the straight people are queer. Like
a little bit, yeah.
Like, I mean, every straight dude I know, or grew up with, they had all already been with another guy, because it's like kind of how they practice. I think it's just part of their culture. And this could be all straight male culture. I know this from, just reading and from documentaries. Same-sex relationships are common amongst heterosexual people in plenty of cultures, and ours is just one of them. Everybody's messing around with everybody. But if you get caught being somebody that prefers it, then that's a little different.
Yeah. As far as I know, I'm the only out lesbian. There's several bi girls that came out. I take that back. There's one other girl that's a lesbian. She lives in California now. There was plenty of gay guys that came out of my era of high school and that kind of thing. But like I said, we never really had anywhere that we could go. We could either be in the car or that's it, So we would go out to eat. We would go to the movies. We'd go driving around the back roads. I know the back roads of the county that I grew up in better than almost anything in this world, thanks to those days. There was really, because there was nowhere else for us to be. So we would just drive around and listen to music and talk about all the things that you talk about. And a couple of my male friends, all of my male friends, actually, all 4 of them turned out to be queer, but none of my girlfriends. But I just wonder how they would have been, if they all would have still been friends if I had never gone to that school. Because I moved out there in 6th grade and I queered it up pretty easy. But my 4 best male friends all turned out queer. And the first boy I ever kissed.
I do think that there's something to that, like a subconscious sense of safety.
I think he was the most female male I could find, because the first boy I ever kissed, he was kind of feminine. And so were Mike and Jonas. They were clearly gay. There was no hiding it.
Something, because I work with, like my day job is working with LGBTQIA2S plus young people, and their generation has a lot of, they have a perspective on a lot of the things we did that is, they're confused by it. Like, for instance, the Lavender marriage, like there's a whole discourse amongst these emerging adults that these were torturous, prisons of, like a Lavender marriage was somehow like a terrible thing to be in.
Is that where a lesbian marries a gay man?
Mm-hmm.
I did that.
Exactly. Not only was that like, we felt like it was an amazing loophole.
Yeah. It was gay marriage.
Yeah. And sure, in the context of equality and civil rights, which may be where they're coming from, because they haven't lived in a world where they didn't have that particular right. But in a world that only affords certain rights and privileges to married people, marrying someone and attaining those rights, but not having to be in love with that person, not having all the bullshit that comes along with, maintaining a romantic relationship in the context also of economic security. There was a level of freedom there. And I'm not saying it's easy to keep a secret. That would have been for sure like probably the most depressing part, or maybe the most like difficult part, is hiding it. But sometimes you didn't even really have to hide it. As long as you made a good faith effort to make it look like you were trying, people left you alone.
Mike and I didn't even try.
Yeah,
We didn't try to fool people. It was clear that we were queer and that we got married for the benefits because there were plenty of them.
exactly.
Um, and we were married for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And we're still friends to this day. We went through our trouble. Our divorce was pretty funny, but he helped me get my mom's grave moved this past year. We're still pretty good friends, still in each other's lives, doing mutual aid, things like that. He's a nurse anesthesiologist now. My brother, he was convinced that we had had sex or something, and I was like, really? No, I guess you don't understand what the word gay means. I have
Hmm.
no interest in having sex with him or his penis, and he
Yeah.
has no interest in my body whatsoever. We never even got drunk and made out.
Yeah.
It was just never about that. And my brother was shocked to find out that information.
Yeah. Those are pretty easy relationships to keep. But my God, the benefits.
The only people that really got it twisted were like our parents. They
Mhm.
didn't understand what we were doing. And my dad, when I moved to Lexington, my dad told Mike that he had to make sure that my insurance got paid, and Mike got weird about it. When money gets involved, everything gets weird.
Right. Anytime that the real world creeps into something, it
Yeah.
kind of takes the fun out of it. Because really, when you're in a Lavender relationship, you're just playing house before you share any bills or anything like that. There's no strings attached or anything. But money is maybe the heaviest string.
Yeah, the night that we got married, I stayed home with my girlfriend and he went to the gay bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can only imagine how weird that was for my girlfriend at the time. She was like, because she didn't come to the wedding. And just to think, my girlfriend's getting married right now. We got married on a Tuesday afternoon. There's a little, in Catlettsburg, Kentucky, there is a little wedding chapel that's right across the street from the courthouse. And it is a half beauty salon, half wedding chapel. And it looks straight out of Vegas in 1974 with all of its bad flowers and lattice pink lame, all that kind of stuff.
I've never heard of Catlettsburg before.
Yeah. The only question they really asked us was if we were cousins, because we
Mhm.
were in Kentucky, I guess. And we went across the street, and the guy said, "Do you want to, kiss the bride?" And we cracked up laughing, and he kissed me on the cheek.
Mhm.
And I still have the Polaroids from our wedding ceremony. I was wearing carpenter pants with a beeper hanging out the side of them, and he was just wearing khaki pants and a button-up shirt.
Jellicoe actually used to be a place where people would go to get married because it was like kind of the Vegas of Appalachia, because you didn't even have to be an adult. Kids could get married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think it was maybe 13 or 14, but like plenty of people were not that old. And I'm sure that there were plenty of instances of full grown people who should not have been marrying underage people who went to abuse that loophole. But, it was also just people did it because it was easy to get married there. Like it was like affordable, and you could do it in a day.
Yeah, no questions asked.
Yeah, people would just elope there. Also, it being a place that drew people who didn't have paperwork, either indentured servants whose contracts were not released when they were up, which was really common, the way a lot of people in that region wound up disenfranchised. When you indenture to someone, you just kind of taking it on faith that they're going to hold up their end of the bargain and release you when the time is up. And a lot of people just didn't do it, so they'd have to run away. And then, freed or escaped slaves, they also would not have documents. And so there was a few ways to kind of fudge a paper trail of citizenship, and one was marriage.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You could also get a social security number for signing up to fight in a war. So the Civil War, or one of the many like French and Indian Wars and those kinds of things. I think they'd give you like $600 in a social security number, and then people would desert.
Hell yeah, because that was a lot of money. That's what I would do too. I'd be a lousy soldier. I'd be like, whatever, go ahead. I'm not going to shoot you.
I was partway through some documents to enlist, but David talked me out of it. And this was shortly before he was killed. and he had, I'm sure several reasons. One was, I mean, you've seen The Invisible War, that documentary. Just it was less of a would I experience sexual violence than a when, where, and
When,
how many times. Yeah,
yeah.
it was a dreadful place. So he was like, please, for the love of God, don't do that. And also, they were just dying like crazy. I think 2008 was when we lost the most soldiers in that war.
Is that the year your brother passed?
Hmm.
My brother passed in '07.
I remember when we met, actually, I'm not gonna say we bonded over it, but I just remember being like, yes, this is a dead sibling, someone who has died far too young. This is some Appalachian shit right here.
Uh-huh.
Like it is not, it's just, I don't know anybody who hasn't experienced a close family member's tragic, untimely death.
People in Appalachia do tend to die younger.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just anecdotal evidence. If you count the brothers and sisters of my three parents,
Mm.
I had 19 aunts and uncles before you started counting spouses, right? So just the siblings, there were 19 of them, and none of the women lived past the age of 60.
All right. I'm looking up the census data now. The gap in life expectancy between Appalachia and the rest of the US has increased over the years, with a 2.5 year difference from 2009 to 13 compared to a prior half a year difference in the 90s. So it's actually getting worse. Good Lord, this map is depressing. Greater Appalachia has the lowest life expectancy on average of every American region.
Even over Native Americans?
Well, this isn't by ethnicity, this is the region. So just the Appalachian region. I wonder if this map, what I'm going to do is, I'm just interested in this. And so I'm going to do some research on this, and I'm going to write a little story about it, and we'll make a website and put a blog out.
Sounds good to
We're
me.
just going to do this from now on. Whatever random shit we wind up Googling because it comes up out of nowhere, we'll make a little post about it afterwards. Because I want to know. But then, in an American context, that's still like, we have a higher average life expectancy than a lot of other regions around the globe. It isn't to say that we shouldn't do a better job domestically. We really stopped talking about queer spaces. These are really just kind of perfunctory gestures towards some kind of structure, listeners.
Well, I mean, it's a queer Appalachian issue if it's happening to queer Appalachian people.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely. I'm super interested in how this breaks out by identity, although that's going to be difficult to manage because they did not incorporate questions about sexual and gender identity in the 2020 census.
I included a giant sticker on the back of when I did the last census. Did you do that with the sticker on it?
No, I don't remember
It
a
basically
sticker.
marked the outside of it. It said we should be counted too.
Oh, no, I didn't. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Just so that when they came through, people would see them.
Fucking, you got to make your mark where you can.
Yeah. And I have a big loud mouth.
Well, should we hear about this week's sponsor?
Sure. Let's see here. All right. This episode of Queerness is brought to you by Crisco. Yes, that Crisco. The same tub of white gold that your granny kept in the cabinet right next to the family Bible and the good scissors. Crisco for frying hush puppies, greasing pans, moisturizing elbows, and tamming squeaky hinges. It's basically the Swiss Army knife of kitchen staples. You think it's just for biscuits? Oh, no, sugar. Crisco is an Appalachian versatility in a can. A miracle product with the energy of a drag queen who also fixes trucks and sings lead in the church choir. But let's be honest, we queers are experts at creative problem solving. We see a can of shortening and think, yes, biscuits, of course, but maybe we could also use it as a DIY candle wax or be like my mom in the 80s and slather it on as a suntan oil. It's so versatile. But if you've never seen someone use Crisco to season a cast iron skillet before then frying delicious chicken to a golden perfection, well, you just haven't lived. Crisco for when you need to fry it, fix it, or finesse your way through the impossible with a glossy finish.
I just opened a fresh can last night, actually, and fried some steak fries.
Nice. We got a Ninja. We got an Instapot in the mail yesterday. I can't wait to try it out to make French fries. Air fryer French fries are superior to most French fries that you can make unless you do deep fry them.
Where do you come down on air fried chicken.
My wife makes the best fried chicken there is, so we wouldn't even try it.
Yeah.
I have you seen that meme where it says your grandmother looking down on you from heaven making air fryer chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like my grandmother would be staring at me. There's no way.
And I saw a recipe for cornbread in the convection oven because I've never cooked cornbread not in a cast iron skillet.
Are you pro or anti-sugar in your cornbread?
I have developed appreciation for sweetened cornbread, but it is not the cornbread of my people.
My grandmother was a prolific cornbread maker, and hers always had sugar in it. So
Mm-hmm.
I have been tarnished from the beginning, I guess.
I think that it can be less restrictive than sometimes is made out to be. It's like sometimes said that like this region only does cornbread this way, but I think it's more about the person. One person may have really strong beliefs about whether cornbread should be sweet or savory, but the next house over might have different ones.
Yeah, agreed completely.
So my mom really hates yellow cornbread and she really hates sweet cornbread. And for a long time, I didn't have the palate to appreciate it because, you know, hers was exact same every time. Like she is consistent, man. Everything she made was exactly the same every time. She never burned it. Consistency was never off.
I do love some cornbread. My grandmother was more, so my other grandmother, my maternal grandmother was more known for her yeast rolls. She would make yeast rolls from scratch, and I would love to get my teeth in one of those 30 years later.
Oh, hell yeah.
I've always had a special place in my heart for yeast rolls because of grandma's, for her things. And then my dad's mom was the cornbread maker. Wherever you went for dinner, it was usually pretty good.
My dad's mom had a kind of a Germanic vibe, and like Eastern European, and I don't know if that is her lineage. I actually don't know a lot about that side of the family. But from before they got here, like it's well documented afterwards. But it's like, who the fuck were you people before? Not real sure. So she made like goulash and some like desserts. She would make like ambrosia salad and what things that just felt really exotic.
Did they ever make ham salad?
Yeah. And she would there's a traditional meal for New Year's Day that has like black-eyed peas. It's supposed to be good luck.
Cabbage?
Yeah, probably. And then that's when she would make the ambrosia salad. And so I just remember like that. I didn't know anybody else that cooked food like my grandmother Cooper did.
My grandmother, my adopted grandmother, she was a good cook as well. And the main piece of advice I remember from her ever giving me was always pepper your beans. So take that for what you will.
Do you have a green bean recipe?
That's Shanna again. Shanna has taken over most of the cooking duties in my family, thank the Lord. I don't have the patience to be a good cook. I really don't. But she does. She starts out by frying some bacon, and then she cooks down an onion in the bacon grease, and then she adds the chicken stock and the green beans and lets them cook all day with lots of salt and pepper and garlic powder. They're very good.
Yeah,
They're very good.
That's exactly how you do it.
Yep.
Now I want green beans for dinner.
So do I. We're having barbecue chicken and sweet corn on the cob tonight, and I'm very excited about it. There's a couple of produce markets here where you can go, and they have all the goods, and we got everything to make spaghetti. So we got green pepper, tomatoes, garlic, onion, all those things, and then we got some sweet corn that we're going to make tonight, and I'm very excited about that. Mm-hmm. I'm so sick of food out in the world. I just want real food.
Yeah, I've got some real things at the house now, and so I'm going to start trying to do that better. I just don't cook much anymore.
We don't cook as much as we should. We need to get better at that. But tonight and tomorrow, we're cooking for sure.
Well, it's time, I think, for a noun of Appalachian interest. This is the segment where we share some information about a person, place, or thing, either from or integral to life in the Appalachian region. This week's noun is granny women. So if you don't know what granny women are, allow me to introduce you to the unsung queens of survival of the hollers. Long before urgent care and WebMD, these women were the backbone of their communities. Midwives, healers, herbalists, and therapists all rolled into one. They were the people you called when you were sick, scared, or just needed someone to sit with you through the night. Granny women built networks of care when formal systems excluded them, the same as queer people have. When the official channels of care, hospitals, policies, or even blood banks told us, queer people, we were too risky, too sinful, too other, we didn't just wither and die, the same as what granny women did. We made our own remedies, we turned living rooms into clinics, kitchens into safe havens, and Sunday dinners into mutual aid. Granny women knew healing was never just about the body, it was about belonging. Queer communities understand this deeply, where granny women brewed teas, packed poultices, and trusted the plants that grew where they stood, not because they romanticized the struggle, but because gatekeeping kept care out of reach. For decades, queer folks have had to hack our way to survival, whether by sharing hormone resources, swapping safe sex tips in bars, or finding community-led solutions where official systems slam the door. Granny women weren't waiting on medical boards, and neither were we. Granny women weren't just healers, they were teachers. They passed knowledge down quietly, like recipes whispered in kitchens. Today, queer elders do the same in drag bars, living rooms, and community centers. When they tell us how to navigate systems that were never built for us, they're echoing these granny women. What isn't written down, keep alive in each other. Knowledge is lineage. Protect it like kin. Granny women weren't just tending wounds, they were resisting. Every poultice or salve was a refusal to let a system decide who lives. Loving each other out loud in a hostile system is radical. It always has been. Granny women and queer folks share a bone-deep knowing that the people who will save us are us. When care becomes an act of defiance, survival becomes a form of revolution.
Very cool.
Some people say granny women, like they talk about them like they're witches, which is kind of cool.
Everybody thought my grandmother, my adopted grandmother, they thought that she was a witch up on the hill because she was exactly what you just described.
Yeah. And I think that's one reason why, like, we have multiple grannies, because any, like, elder woman who has a certain knowledge to do with, like, making resources out of her environment, she becomes granny. Of course it would be a woman. Like, there's a crisis and we don't understand how to fix it. Find a woman to help. because there's just, we know that that's where knowledge is accumulated.
Did you know that until recently, beer was considered a feminine drink because it was the women of the villages or whatever that gathered the ingredients and brewed the beer because it took so much time and precision. And it's the modern day beer companies that repackaged it as a masculine thing.
No.
It's always been about women.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Just, I'm thinking back to, like, reading literature in undergrad, like how in Jane Eyre, remember Grace Poole is always drinking beer.
Right.
And I remember the, like, frat bros in my class being like, they were kind of like, this is our culture. The teacher, she didn't say that, but she was like, it functioned different culturally. It was kind of a form of nutrition, which makes sense, I guess.
Because you couldn't trust the water.
Mm-hmm. I remember one time I had really bad soreness, like from a super hard workout, and was afraid I had rhabdo. And I was reading, like, about recovery strategies for a really hard workout, and one article was like, drink beer because because it has all of these, like, nutrients and stuff in it. But I was just like, oh my God, I'm glad I didn't know that before I got sober, because that would have just been another excuse. I worked out.
Hey,
really
it's my
hard.
Gatorade.
But it also, just because of my relationship to alcohol, it was the first time I'd thought of it as a nutrition thing.
I've never thought of alcohol as a nutrition thing.
Well, and I'm sure it varies. Like, the stuff that, like, is also paint thinner probably is not very nutritious. When you gave me that moonshine when we first met, was it flavored?
It was apple pie.
Apple pie flavored, yeah.
Yeah. They gave me an apple pie and a grape. And I gave you the apple pie and I gave Andrew the grape.
Yeah. I'm sure, yeah. Or if you had tried to give me the grape, I probably would have said no. Sounds dreadful.
Yeah. I can still get you some if you need it.
I don't think, as bad as things are these days, and as hard, I have still yet to have the urge to drink again.
Amen to that.
So I think that,
I've literally not had a drink in like 7, 8 years.
Yeah, it's been, I don't remember how many, but it has been at least 6 or 7 for me, because it was shortly after I left Bowling Green.
It's wild to think you've been gone that long.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I know that makes me one of the lucky ones, that not everybody has found it easy to quit a vice or a substance. And, if that's you out there, keep trying. Every time you try might be the time you succeed.
Amen. It took me 7 or 8 times to quit smoking, but I did it. It's been 10 years for me.
Shit's hard.
It really is.
Ask for help if you need it. Is there anything you want to say to the folks when we wrap up?
If you are trying to quit smoking, most states have a free program, if you Google it, where you can get free smoking cessation aids sent to you, everything from nicotine gum to the patches. So if you do want to quit smoking, there is help out there. That's something that I found helpful when I wanted to quit, because the patches were really expensive. Not as expensive as the cigarettes, which, I didn't quite think through. But if you do want to quit smoking, there's lots of help out there. My dad died of lung cancer, and I'm really interested in helping people to quit smoking these days. So,
Yep, agreed. It's a mission of mine.
Yeah.
Well, as usual, if you enjoyed this show, maybe leave us a comment on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts if they allow that kind of thing. I'm not super familiar with them.
Or a 5-star rating would be nice as well.
Yeah, a 5-star rating would be real big help. Help us game that algorithm a little and reach some more folks.
I can't believe we've been listened to in England. That blows my mind.
Somebody in Australia listened to us too.
Yeah.
And it's not just one person. It's like several. And
that's amazing.
I know, it's several people listening to several episodes apiece. But I'll stop spilling the tea on who was actually listening to us when it stops being so goddamn impressive that anybody's doing it. And we're on social media. I'm not as active as I would like to be, but I have a full-time job and a dissertation to write, and one day we'll be the social media juggernauts that you listeners deserve, but maybe y'all aren't that interested in it either. Well, thanks for hanging out with Queerness. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Say hi to your mom and them.